So welcome everyone to Healthy Holiday Meals with Lauren, Bryan, and Alicia Faris. We're so excited to have both of you come and share your knowledge with us during Winter Wellness Week. So I would love to turn it over to the both of you. If you could just share with us a little bit about yourself and your work, and then take us on this wonderful journey. I'm so excited.
Thanks, Christina. Hi, everyone. My name's Lauren Bryson. I am a board certified holistic nutritionist. Just passed my test this week, which is very exciting. I'm based just north of San Francisco, and I am a health coach. I work with clients one-on-one. I also teach kids cooking with a nonprofit called Kids Cooking for Life, where we teach them healthy habits at a young age. And then I'm also a wellness facilitator with Bauman Wellness, teaching mostly affordable nutrition, where we teach you guys how to eat healthy on a budget, but also kind of deeply involved in the wellness weeks. Today, we're going to be talking about self-care in the holiday season, which we all need, especially right now. Yeah, that's me. Let me turn it over to Alicia.
So, hi, everybody. I'm Alicia Faris, also a graduate of Bowman College. I'm working now mostly teaching cooking classes after working with clients one-on-one. I worked mostly with families and with teens, realizing that a big part of the issue is that our food system is troubled, right? And that we don't have a lot of the knowledge of cooking and of ancient remedies and of cultural foods. So I kind of got into teaching cooking through nutrition and teaching others how to kind of take care of themselves by feeding themselves whole natural foods, as opposed to kind of going the more the processed routes of things. So I am in Oakland, California. I love getting to work with Lauren. I've got a nutrition business that I mostly teach cooking classes. I do summer camps and after school classes called Panacea. And I'm excited to be sharing with Lauren today. So we've got a couple of fun recipes. As Lauren mentioned, we're talking a lot about holiday self-care over the holidays, which is really important, as well as just treating yourself well, treating your family well, and feeding yourself really well. And we know that taking care of yourself is not just what you're putting into your body, but also your surroundings, how you're dealing with stress. Especially right now, I feel like there's a lot on our plates, right? There's a lot going on. People are traveling, people are canceling plans. There's COVID, there's, civil unrest. There's just any number of things that we're dealing with that are stressful in this moment. So taking this time, as opposed to allowing the holidays to kind of get us more tense and more stressed and tightened and wound up, taking this time to really take a deep exhale as we head towards the solstice and start turning the corner into the brighter times of, more sunlight and more bringing in kind of the light and the brightness into our lives. It's important to take that time to take care of ourselves. So
Alicia's going to do a food demo, and then I'm going to do a food demo, and then we can just kind of have a discussion on just different forms of self-care during the holidays. So it's going to be super laid back and chill, but kind of impactful as well. So Alicia, tell us what you're making.
Yeah. So in the holiday time, we all have different traditions and things that we like to cook and make. And a lot of those meals, and we talked about this a little bit in this group over in the Mighty Networks community about turkeys and Thanksgiving, and understanding where, when you're going to the grocery store and buying a turkey or a holiday ham, considering kind of where those animals are coming from and how they're being treated. For me anyways, is had a big impact on my enjoyment of wanting to eat them. Like the way that turkeys are bred, they can't even stand up sometimes. They're pumped with antibiotics. A lot of the hams that we might have are raised in factory farms or CAFOs. If you're unfamiliar with those, it's just in the United States, the way that we raise and process massive amounts of cheap meat is through these pretty inhumane and unpleasant conditions for the animals, and also the way that they're treated, that, then is something that we consume, and the way that they were raised and the amount of nutrients that they receive. If they're not out in the sunlight grazing from grass, they're not getting the same nutrients as like a pasture raised animal would. So today, Lauren and I we're going plant-based route for our holiday meals, which I think adding in a lot of like nutritious foods to the holiday meals is really important, because we have, these eating experiences with our families, and we want to nourish them, right? We don't want to afterwards feel like, oh, I just ate so much, I can't move, and now I need to lay on the couch for 3 days. So bringing in nutrients and nourishment any way that we can, I think, is really important. So I'm going to be making this Delicata squash bake that I love. So in the wintertime, we have these really nice different types of squashes. The Delicatas that look a little bit like this one, kind of a long, thin squash that you can eat the skin. I love squashes that you can eat the skin. Also, a lot of the nutrients of plants end up in the skin or in the outside, because it's meant to be a protective layer while it's growing. So for example, if you have like a lettuce with a darker red on the outside, that plant has evolved with that dark color on the outside to protect it from the sun, right? So these squashes have a hard exterior on the outside that's meant to protect it from animals eating it, things like that. So a lot of the nutrients and a lot of the antioxidants are actually in the skin. So any chance I have to eat skin, I do. Plus peeling squash, guys. So the Delicata squash, you can eat the whole thing. There's also this is a carnival squash. There's all kinds of beautiful little squashes. Some of them you can eat the skin. Some of them, the skin is going to be a little bit more tough, but these ones in particular, you can. So for the squash, what I like to do is just slice it in half. You can eat the whole thing. You can, once you've sliced your squash in half, which I've already done. I did one of those magic tricks today. But inside, you can just use a spoon to peel the seeds out. Pretty simple. And I like to just have a bowl of water handy nearby. And if you just put all those squash seeds and skins into a bowl of water, it'll loosen them up. So it'll make it a little easier for you to pull the seeds out. And then you can also, once you've pulled the seeds out, you can just lay them on a flat paper towel, let them dry out, ideally overnight. But if you're cooking it all on the same day, then just kind of dry them with a paper towel as best you can. And you can take the seeds and just dry roast them in a pan. Then you get the added nutrients from the seeds. Then with the squash itself, once you've got it kind of hollowed out like a boat, what I like to do is just slice them into little half moons. So you can go through just about a 1/4 inch half moon slices for your squash. And with these, you could use, like I said, any kind of squash this works for. I think it makes for a really nice kind of hearty. You can, if you had a handful of these, if you're feeding a crowd, you could bake it in a casserole dish or something. So once you've sliced your squash, we just roast them or toss them with a little bit of oil. I like to use coconut oil with this because it kind of blends nicely to the recipe. What I'm going to be doing is making a tahini, lemon. Well, today I'm going to be using a chai honey sauce, but you could use maple syrup or honey or any kind of, I like to use a non-refined sweetener. So yeah, just toss them with a little bit of olive oil, lay them out flat on a sheet tray, salt, pepper, and then roast them at 400 degrees. Depending on the kind of squash you're using, the time may be variable, but these Delicata squash, when you slice them about 1/4 inch, half an inch thick, is gonna take 15 minutes. It really doesn't take all that long at all. And once you've roasted them, you end up with these really adorable, you get a nice little browning on the outside. But they'll be a little bit crisp. The skin is a little bit crispy, and then really kind of creamy and satisfying on the inside. So once you've roasted your squash, or while you're roasting your squash, I also like to make a little dressing to go on this. So
And Alicia, we have one quick question in the chat about the squash. Will you use the squash seeds?
Yes. Yeah, and I also, since I'm far away, I can't really see the chat, so feel free to pop in with those questions anytime. Yeah, the seeds, what I'll do is just pull them. I soak them in water for just a little bit to kind of clean them. You want to try to get all of the squash innards, all of the kind of goopy stuff, if you will, off of the squash, and then dry the seeds. And then I just throw them in a pan, just a little salt, pepper. You could add some other seasonings, add some other herbs. I try to add any herbs and spices anywhere I can, really. So I'll just kind of hit the spice rack and see what I've got that might go nice with this. But even something like cinnamon would be a lovely addition to that. So yeah, really simple. I think the trick to roasting the seeds is just making sure that they're dry, because if they're wet, then they're going to kind of steam and they get a little bit more chewy. But if you dry them out as best you can, and then toast them in the pan, and you can either do it with olive oil or you could do a dry toast. But yeah, that's a really great way to use the seeds. And then I'll sprinkle them right on top at the end.
And how long does it take to dry the seeds?
So you can cook the seeds almost immediately if you dry them just on the outside with a paper towel. So that's going to give you still a nice seed. They aren't quite as crispy if you lay them out and dry them overnight. So if you have the wherewithal to like open your squash and clean the seeds out the day before you're going to be roasting to make the dish, you can dry the seeds out overnight and then toast them the next day, and they'll be a little bit crispier. But if you're just cut your squash open, want to cook it right then, all you have to do is just use a towel to dry the seeds afterwards. You just want the outside to be mostly dry. So
great, thank you.
Yes, of course. So for the dressing is really simple here. What I like to use is tahini, but you could use a different kind of like a sunflower butter. You could use your favorite nut butter or something like that. The tahini is really nice. So tahini, if you're not familiar, is made from sesame seeds. Lots of antioxidants. So in sesames, we have lignans, which are very anti-inflammatory. And in this whole process of nourishing our families, we have a lot of free radicals just roaming around all over the planet right now. So anytime we can add foods that are anti-inflammatory, that have antioxidants to kind of help our body to work with those oxidized toxins, things like that are coming into our body, right? So with the tahini, it's got a pretty dry, if you eat tahini just on its own, it's relatively dry. It's relatively, it has a little bit of like a bitterness to it. So in this particular recipe, it works really nice because it kind of balances out the sweetness of the squash. We're also going to sweeten it up a little bit and add a little lemon juice to balance out the acidity. So you can kind of work with the ratios here. I typically will use 3 tablespoons of tahini and then add the juice of half of a lemon, which is about a tablespoon or a tablespoon and a half. But if you like a little bit more tartness, you could add more lemon than that. And then the last thing that I'm going to add is just to kind of balance out the tahini a little bit. Typically for this recipe, I'll use maple syrup, which is pretty easy to find ingredient. Adds sweetness and also some nutrients that you don't typically find in something like a refined sugar. So it can kind of check all the boxes. I do a lot of cooking with kids, so trying to find things that are still satisfying to children to make them eat vegetables that maybe have a little sweetness, that kind of like make it more approachable to people that don't typically eat whole foods as often, I think is helpful. So little tricks like that I use often. But what I'm actually going to add today is this masala chai blend. So it's actually all these really yummy adaptogenic herbs in honey that it's kind of like you can take a spoonful of it and add it to hot water and make yourself a chai blend. But they have, it's made in Santa Cruz, but I don't know, you might be able to find it at like a local natural food store that you have. But this one's got all kinds of it's got dong quai, ginseng, astragalus, cordyceps, Chinese licorice, shishandra, the list goes on. anyways, so adding, and I try to find ways that I can add in different herbs and spices and nutrients. So even if you don't have this, the ability to use this blend, you could make your own little chai kind of syrup or chai honey with the maple syrup and steep some herbs into those, into honey or into maple syrup. And that's another way that you can add more adaptogenic herbs into your diet as well. So that.
Which company is it that makes the tonic honey?
It's called Masala Chai Co. And they have a few different ones. This is a female energy tonic. They have a male energy tonic. They have several different blends, but it is super yummy and yeah, filled with good stuff. But you could definitely make it. It's just honey with the spices in it. So you could definitely make your own favorite chai spice blend and just add all those spices into honey and then make a jar for yourself. And it wouldn't be that hard to make on your own either. So, but yeah, I particularly love that one. But again, if you don't have access to that chai blend, or maybe you're not into chai, maple syrup or just honey will work just fine here too. Okay. So then that you just whisk together. If it feels a little bit too thick, you can always add a little bit of water. You can add more lemon juice to it. If you don't have lemon juice, you could use your favorite vinegar. So basically just some kind of a nut or seed butter, a little bit of lemon juice or some kind of vinegar, and some kind of sweetener to kind of balance it out. And you just give that a whisk and it'll make a relatively like smooth, but kind of thin sauce that you'll just pour on top. And that I just will drizzle over the top. And then a few last pieces. So you'll see this comes together pretty quickly. And you can make, this is a smaller plate just for me, but you can certainly make a larger portion for your whole family. I like to add a little bit of parsley, adds a nice pop of color. Little freshness to it. If you have some toasted nuts or seeds around, I've got hazelnuts, which I will like to add. And with the hazelnuts, I'll just kind of give them a little rough chop. And then last but not least, my favorite part to add to this dish is pomegranate. I don't know. Does anybody like to eat pomegranates in the winter?
I love pomegranate, and I always stain my shirts.
I know. It's almost inevitable.
So good. I love that you're putting that on the squash. I was not prepared. That's awesome.
Yeah, and these are so fun too. I can apparently put pomegranate on anything, and my kiddos are like, okay, you can feed us salad as long as you put pomegranate on it. Is my camp kiddos have told me that before. So I'm like, okay, great. It's also a really fun activity for the kids to do if you've got kids or husbands or partners that don't do a lot of cooking but like to help out. You can have them clean the seeds out. They're so beautiful, so rich in antioxidants. Pomegranate juice has more antioxidants than green tea or red wine, which we always like. I don't know, to me, when I'm thinking of drinking my antioxidants, I'm definitely thinking of green tea. So pomegranate is just such a great ingredient, so beautiful, so colorful. And with the pomegranate, if you don't work with whole pomegranates, you can also buy pomegranates already already cleaned, but they're really pretty simple to do. There's two different ways that I like to open the pomegranates. One is underwater. So you can just hold them underwater and you can kind of loosen up the seeds and they'll fall right out. Or you can take a wooden spoon and take your pomegranate that's been quartered. And I like to get a kind of a big bowl, and then you just kind of give it they're flying everywhere. This is also a nice thing to do outside, especially if your kitchen's white. But yeah, just kind of pat it on the back, and I don't know if you can see that well, but they just fly right into your bowl when you do that.
I've never seen this before. I'm so excited to try it.
Oh yeah. This is it's a great way to do it.
You gotta spank the pomegranate.
Yeah.
You know, the good spanking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So once you give it a little spank, you know, it's pretty much, you got most of your seeds out at that point.
Everything out.
Yeah. And then you can pull, and there's actually a lot of nutrients in the actual skin too. People often pull the little pieces of pulp out and try to not get them in because they're not quite as delicious as the pomegranate, but they also have a lot of nutrients. So if a few of them end up in there, it's okay. So yeah, then once you've got some of your pomegranate, you just toss that on top of your salad, which I think really ties the room together. And that's it, friends. So then you have a really lovely squash salad.
Again? Show it again.
Here, I can
Got it.
I'm loving the colors.
Yeah. So a little hazelnut, little squash. And you know, when you slice your squash too, we eat with our eyes. So you can kind of like lay the squash out once you've got these beautiful little squash rainbows or smiley faces. However, once you've roasted them and they've got just a little like browning on the outside, you could lay them out in a line on a long platter and then just make a really beautiful dish. But this is definitely one of my go-tos when I am thinking about holiday meals and ways to feed and nourish my friends and family in a way that feels really good. And it's also really simple and comes together really quickly and tastes delicious. So.
Will you post the recipe?
Sure.
I'd love to try it.
Yeah. And I can even just put it in the chat.
We're going to put everything in bowmanwellness.co.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah. I'll post it in there.
You know, it's incentive for people to go visit the network and shout it out and look at these things. That's cool.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yum. That was awesome. Thanks, Alicia.
Nice.
Of course. And Lauren, I think you've got a little treat to follow that up with, right?
Yeah. So Alicia handled our healthy vegetables, which are so important. I went for the sweet stuff. So we went for a healthier version of holiday nut brittle. How does everyone feel about holiday nut brittle? Or what kind of desserts do you guys like for the holidays?
Nut brittle.
Nut brittle.
I love the idea of nut brittle. I wanted to make some pumpkin seed brittle lately, but I haven't been able to do that much sugar. Yeah, so brittle.
Yeah, nut brittle. Me personally, we always have a chocolate Yule log for Christmas, which I do love because it's kind of nostalgic. Johan says anything for low sugar, high fiber for pre-diabetics. Well, so this recipe, this is a healthier version of nut brittle that actually one of my professors at Bowman College, Kathy, she did a food demo. This is like my first food demo I ever saw. Remember Kathy, Dr. B?
Of course, it's a Bowman recipe.
Yes, there we go. Perfect. And this is good. So the only form of sugar that is used is maple syrup. And then, so this is my maple syrup. The rest of the ingredients are sunflower seeds, cashews, almonds, sesame seeds, and flax seeds. Yeah, Canadian maple syrup, you get extra points. For Canadian maple syrup, if you tap it from the tree, which I've never done, but it sounds kind of fun. So half a cup of maple syrup. As I said, we'll post this recipe in the BaumanWellness.co Mighty Networks to get you guys over there. Half a cup of maple syrup, 2 cups of sunflower seeds, 1 cup cashews, coarsely chopped, 1 cup almonds, coarsely chopped, half cup sesame seeds, and a half cup of flax seeds. I have the oven preheated to 350 degrees. And then here on my food demo camera is the coarsely chopped cashews and almonds. I'm going to pop these in a big bowl. And this is a really good gift as well to give to people.
I love food gifts.
Yeah, me too. I was gonna do this, but then I don't know, things are kind of weird with COVID again. So hopefully next year, everyone's gonna be getting some nut brittle. So we have the cashews and almonds in here. I am going to add in the maple syrup. So half cup of maple syrup. I'm going to do about a little less of the half cup. And then add in some more once I add the rest of the nuts and seeds. So next up is sunflower seeds. How does everyone feel about sunflower seeds? Do you like them?
Yeah.
Do you like them? Do you not like them?
Love them. I just started toasting them and grinding them up in the mortar and pestle and putting them pretty good. Or just munching on them is nice.
Totally. I love that you use the mortar and pestle all the time. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm still trying to get a good one though. I have a crappy one from Amazon. And I was borrowing my landlord's, and he has a really nice one. So I was like making nice nut butter or like pumpkin seed butter with it.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, so perfect timing. I just added in pumpkin seeds. I'm a huge fan of pumpkin seeds. They're really high in zinc. They're really high in fiber. I like them toasted. You can make pepitas. Super simple, super easy. Flaxseed, a very good superfood, nutrient dense, powerhouse. And then sesame seed. I don't honestly cook with sesame seed that much, but I know it's really high in calcium and it is really high in healthy fats and fiber.
Lauren, could you also add either vanilla or peppermint flavoring?
Absolutely. 100%. You can add in spice. This recipe doesn't really call for spices, but I think cinnamon or nutmeg might be good. You can really kind of add in whatever you want, whatever feels good for you, which is like the beauty of cooking, I think.
Would you grind up some fennel seed in there?
Ooh, fennel seed. Yeah. Yeah. If you want something a little more savory, I would go for it.
Plus that might help with digestion after if you're having this like after dinner.
Absolutely.
Love it. I love fennel.
Yeah.
That's a nice addition.
So I'm just kind of slowly adding in the seeds while I'm mixing in the maple syrup to make sure everything is coated. Oh my gosh, it smells so good. So we like maple syrup because it's a natural form of sugar. It's not artificial. I teach this to the kids that I teach kids cooking to. We always emphasize natural forms of sugar over artificial forms of sugar. Because it's hard over the holidays. There's sugar everywhere.
And the manganese content is going to help you metabolize the sugar in there too.
There you go. I didn't even think about that. That's awesome. So everything's all kind of mixed in. I'm going to add the rest of the sunflower seeds and sesame seeds. And then I have a baking sheet lined with parchment paper. And you literally just kind of spread it out. They said the oven's on at 350 and you're gonna cook it for 20 to 30 minutes. I always check it about 15, 20 minutes in just to make sure it's not burning.
We have a comment in the chat. Yum, I could even eat it without cooking it.
That might be a little hard on your digestion, but I say go for it. If you got that that solid microbiome that can handle all these nuts and seeds raw. That's a crowd pleaser right there. All right. This is it, you guys. It's really this simple. I'm gonna pop it in the oven, and it'll be ready in about 20 to 30 minutes. It makes the house smell really good. As I said, it's a good, how thick did you make it? I'm spreading it out pretty thin, just so it cooks evenly. And then I'm trying to make sure it all kind of sticks. The maple syrup really makes it stick together, which is nice, because then once it's cooked, you're going to want to kind of break it into chunks. Let me go wash my hands, please.
I like using your hand as a cooking tool. I think that really brings you in connection with what you're making.
Cinnamon, nutmeg, I think.
Any of those are all good.
Cardamom, maybe.
You got it.
Good. Talking about the for pre-diabetes and stuff too, cinnamon would be a nice addition.
20 minutes. So I'll be sure to post the recipe and then also a final picture of our final product in the bowmanwellness.co website.
How long do you let it cool before you, and then how do you break it up so that it doesn't just disintegrate into millions of little pieces?
That's the $1 million question right there. I let it cool completely. And then I kind of will try to have bigger chunks, because if you get smaller chunks, as you just said, it will kind of fall apart. So
could you cut it when it's hot and then it will cool, or is it too chunky?
It's pretty chunky. I have never tried that though, so that may work. But as I said, this is a great nut brittle alternative. Very simple, very easy, tastes good, which I love, very satisfying. But I would love to kind of start a conversation about staying healthy during the holiday season, because the holiday season is difficult sometimes in general. And I feel like now more than ever, we've got so much added stress. So let's talk about what's your favorite form of self-care, either for the holiday season or just in general? I'd love for some people to share.
For us, it's taking the time to walk among the trees and the mountains.
I was going to say, it looks like you're doing it right now.
Yeah, I felt inspired today.
Spending time in nature, as Danisha was saying, if you can exercise in nature, like hiking, that's kind of a double whammy. If you do it with someone else, then you're kind of getting the trifecta of like community support, moving your body, and being outside, which I love. Anyone else want to share about self-care?
I think there's a tendency for me to eat too many sweets during this time of year, and then I get sick. So for me, I have to moderate and, just be mindful. Nut brittle wouldn't be a bad thing. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. My take is, if you're going to eat something, enjoy it. Drop the guilt. But as Chris, you just said, try to be mindful and try to moderate as best as you can, because like food is meant to be enjoyed, and it's a celebration sometimes.
So I'll add that having a variety of warm beverages is really nice.
Yeah.
And thinking about teas and thinking about warm spice drinks and thinking about chais and but warm in general, it's very important for this time of the year. Eating cold food at night, it really is harmful and makes people much more susceptible to immune dysfunction. And so even dietary, people naturally are inclined to eat more fat at this time of year, which is appropriate. So I think eating nuts and seeds is great. And that's really preferred to flours and sugars, which are the treats that people are exposed to. And then I guess the key is kind of knowing what you're going to say no to well in advance, because it's hard to have a little bit of cookies. It's hard to have a little bit of refined sweets because they're just so stimulating of the appetite. And we got such a dose of them earlier in our lives that they gave us, kind of a serotonin boost that we might be looking for, but we don't necessarily get anymore. So it's looking for love in all the wrong places. But having homemade meals and visits with friends is important, and then reaching out to friends and family, even through Zoom, is important, and acknowledging traditions and things of that nature is just keeping a warm hearth and a warm heart is wonderful at this time of year.
Your warm hearth and warm heart reminded me of just like having gratitude is a self-care practice for me this time of year. My family is all over the place. I don't really have any family locally. So I get really wound up in like, okay, I have to get a gift in the mail to this person and the post office. And like, you lose so much of the spirit of like what this season is about. And like, giving gifts does not have to be a consumer mindset of like, I have to go buy all these things, but, just taking the time to make a phone call or send a card or just be present with somebody, whether that's family, friends, someone you've just met, and not getting all consumed with the stressors of the season and all of the consumerism, and just being really present and being really grateful for everything that we have, I think is important. So my little, I have little mini meditations throughout the day. I have a hard time doing like a morning meditation practice because I usually wake up and I think, oh, I have so many things to do. I'm so busy. And like, usually I'll get up and have my tea or, then be like, oh, okay, I can actually sit down now and like take a few moments to just be grateful and slow down. I can already smell your kitchen, Lauren.
I know.
Yeah, it's
starting to smell really good.
A cook always gets that feeling when it's time to open the oven. It's time to turn
starting to smell so good. So for me, as Dr. B kind of touched on, I've been using a lot of herbs and spices. So these are like my two go-tos are either ginger, like ginger tea, if I want something warming, anti-inflammatory, helps digestion, or peppermint. So ginger tea, warming, peppermint, cooling, a little bit more soothing, also anti-inflammatory, also helps with digestion. So those are two really simple, affordable ways to support your body, because we are eating food. Well, I'm eating foods I don't normally eat. And my body sometimes is like, what's going on? Why are you doing this? So tea is a great way to help. Just make a cup of tea. You can use fresh ginger root. You can use dried. You can use tea bags. Fresh ginger root's always going to be the most powerful, but do with what you have.
The other thing that, is never to be ignored is there's tremendous suffering in the world. And for many people, this time of year is traumatic because they didn't have a good family. They didn't have good holiday memories. They're alone. They feel displaced. They may be sick. They may be hurting, all that good stuff, bad stuff, good stuff. So showing kindness to people like that in your thoughts, and then also just as you cross their path, is very nice. And for those of us who make food, having a little food gift is a nice thing. So if you take your nut brittle and you put it in a little, package or a little, just even a Ziploc or something small, and when you go, you can be Santa Claus, and you go, hey, here's something for you for the holidays. And that just can blow people away.
Yeah.
That they got a little healthy gift. It was given with love, no strings attached. And then they go, what is it? And you go, well, it's nut brittle or something, because nut brittle really keeps well, travels well, doesn't spoil, and is remarkably tasty. It's such a good thing. So then it's a matter of being around, because this thing about going to Amazon for Christmas to me is really counterproductive, because now people don't even go to their local stores. They just go online. So depersonalized. And at this time of the year, really touching and connecting with people verbally, and otherwise. Chris got a note yesterday that was handwritten by her aunt, who's in her mid-90s.
97.
97, who still writes notes and thinks of Chris on holidays. And to get a handwritten note is just so heartwarming. We could do a bit more of that, bringing back kind of old ways of relating and honoring our community is very helpful. And then all of this natural wellness is free. The practices that we're doing are free. Cooking is free. The materials are not, but the practice, it's a good practice. And it brings us back home. And then inviting other people into our home, whether it's directly or indirectly, is a beautiful way to connect at this time of the year.
Yeah, I love both of these recipes. The salad too with the squash and the pomegranate.
I can't wait to try that one. That one looks fire. It looks so good.
I wouldn't think to put like a tahini dressing on that, or to even put masala chai in it. So that's really creative. And then the colors just look so great.